Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, as today we preview the Spanish Grand Prix coming up this weekend. How you doing, Sam?
Hola, senor. Yeah, no, I'm really good, thank you. It's always good, isn't it, when I
Spanish
start
Sam.
Off. Spanish Sam.
Didn't know you were here tonight.
It's good to see him, isn't it?
Goodness me.
He won't be back anymore. There's no reason. He's just a busy guy. Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually really tired today. I was up till like 2 a.m. because it's so hot. And you've seen it, folks. You two have. My bedroom's in the loft, and the sun has been on the roof all day. Yeah, and it was warm. So yeah, didn't sleep well. Might fall asleep during the show. So let's keep it spicy.
Goodness me, you've been cooked.
I'm keep away, Harry. You can't eat me because of my gammon.
Right. Anyway, thank you, Spanish Sam. How are we doing, guys?
Adios.
Adios.
I don't even know how to proceed from that. We do have a lot to talk about on today's episode. Before we get to any of that, it is getting close to your last opportunity to get tickets for our live show, our preview of the British Grand Prix coming up on Tuesday, the 2nd of July in London, in Greenwich. Looking forward to seeing all of you that have already booked. But if you do want to come along and you haven't booked tickets already, there is still time. The link, all of the details in the description as always. But what have we got on today's episode? We've got Under Pressure, of course. We've got bold predictions. We've got Pole 1, 2, 3. Alpine cannot keep themselves away from our discussion points. But we're going to start. Well, not yet. We'll get there. We're going to start with previewing the Spanish Grand Prix. So by Red Bull standards, at least, the last few races have been a little trickier. No podium at Monaco, no win at Miami, and very narrow wins for Max Verstappen at both the Canadian and Imola Grand Prix. Sergio Perez has had a real struggle in the last 3 races. He's collected just 4 points from those 3 races. But according to some of the main rivals of Red Bull, maybe their dominance will resume in Barcelona. Charles Leclerc was asked about this and said, I feel like the strength of the Red Bull will be more visible on a track like Barcelona. And George Russell was asked a similar question and said, I expect them to possibly take a small step when we go back to the European races on more conventional circuits. Sam, can you see dominance returning to Red Bull, or are we going to continue to see things be very close at the top?
I think we've mentioned this a few times on the show, haven't we? That, oh no, Harry, you look like you're afraid of something.
Sorry, I forgot that there's a chair and that I'm sat on that's slightly broken, so I went to lean to the side and it just fell over on me. But all is well. I almost did that without any chaos, but anyway. Carry
on. Good. It's good to have you, mate. So I think we've said this a few times on the podcast that the Spanish Grand Prix it's almost the deciding factor for if we're going to have a close championship fight this season, or if actually we've seen a couple of outliers. Maybe the temperature is playing a bit of havoc on tyres. Maybe Red Bull have struggled with some of the curvature at certain tracks. Monaco, of course, being very heavily curb related. Same as Canada, of course, where he still won, but Max Verstappen still won, but it was a bit more of a struggle, Ben, as you already mentioned. And actually, as we get back to the more standard running of things, your more stereotypical schedule of events might start to take place again as we get into the standard European leg of the calendar. And I hate to say it, I think that they're right in their decision. I think that Leclerc and Russell's point of view of saying that they're going to take that step forward. A lot of pundits, a lot of outlets are saying that they expect Red Bull to be quite more dominant here and that the car won't have the same troubles. There's not as many curbs. I think turns 1 and 2, being your favourite turn 1 of all time, of course, and obviously. And the final turn are the kind of the 3 corners that are going to be very much curb related. But for the most part, I think you could get away with it. I think Red Bull's got the pace and Max Verstappen's got the ability to kind of mitigate that problem. And if they were able to go ahead and win somewhere like Canada, I really do think that touching the curbs for literally a couple of seconds over an entire lap is going to be so minimal on their overall performance here that I would not be surprised to see Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez return to some form of supremacy. I really do think that it's going to be a lot more of a dominant display. Of course, Ferrari are bringing upgrades. They've got a much more aero-focused upgrade coming to this Spanish Grand Prix, or rumoured to be anyway, and McLaren have got an optimistic feel about how the weekend's going to go, but Verstappen is Verstappen, and I do think that Red Bull is going to be far more comfortable here, so I would be really shocked to not see them properly back on that top step.
Harry, do you think that the likes of Leclerc and Russell are being negative Nancy's and need to be a bit more optimistic, or what do you think?
Negative Nancy's, goodness me.
Where's Nelly gone?
Goodness me. It's probable that Red Bull are going to be stronger this weekend. Let's be real. But I don't enjoy the drivers going back to this, as you say, negative outlook before a race weekend. We've heard it all before, but a few times this year, other teams have been, Charles Leclerc himself and Carlos Sainz, for example, were thinking they were going to have the most dominant car F1's ever seen as they came into the Imola weekend. Has it arrived? Is it in the room yet? But yeah, don't go back to this, guys. Don't be negative. We want positivity. However, to be realistic, I think Red Bull are going to be stronger again here. Having said that, I don't think Red Bull are going to run away with this again. I think I know it's been a lot of circumstances in terms of where Red Bull have struggled over curbs with Monaco, etc., Miami with the damage. But I do genuinely think these other teams have caught up. Imola, for example, you can't blame that on curbs in Imola because they're very smooth curbs. So I think there is a case to say that it's still going to be a fairly tight fight. It's not to say that Red Bull won't be really competitive, but I think the likes of McLaren, Ferrari, the Spain merchants, they be coming.
Oh,
Mercedes with their one weekend of the year, which apparently they used up in Canada. But all of those teams, I think, are going to be there giving Red Bull / Max Verstappen a headache because Sergio Perez for the last few races has been absent. So even if I think it's going to take a Max Verstappen special performance here to get a good result, I don't think he's going to run away with it.
Related to that last point, and I know I will get a few head shakes from those listening because we give him loads of credit when he's winning by a lot, but I'm going to give him credit when he's not winning by a lot. Max Verstappen deserves a lot of respect for what he's done in the last 4 races because I appreciate that the Red Bull car might not have been as bad as what Sergio Perez has made it out to be, but I do equally believe that the car is not as good or has not been as good as what Max Verstappen has made it look over those last 4 races. I do think he has been the separating factor in at least a couple of those Grand Prix. Like you say, the curb riding issue should be less of a factor here, but to Harry's point, what should give the likes of McLaren and Ferrari perhaps more optimism than they're letting on is the fact that, yes, we are going back to these conventional European circuits, but we've already had one. That was Imola. And it was very, very close. So if it follows that sort of pattern, then maybe this isn't going to be as dominant as Red Bull hope it will be. I think what Red Bull need more than anything, and it does relate to Sergio Perez, is just a little bit more leeway in terms of a poor qualifying performance. Because I think we've reached the point where we shouldn't be surprised when Sergio Perez qualifies poorly, because that's kind of been a feature of his Red Bull career so far. And he was knocked out in Q2 in Spain last year, but he was able to recover to 4th place. And I think we are probably going to get to some circuits, including this one. I know it's not the easiest to overtake, but where if Perez isn't quite on the pace on Saturday, he does have enough to make up some of that ground in the Grand Prix itself on Sunday, which we haven't seen in the last few races. Particular focus on Ferrari, Sam. You've already mentioned some potential upgrades. They had an absolute nightmare in Canada. Can they bounce back from that?
100%. We were just talking about we didn't want that pessimistic attitude, and everyone at Ferrari have said that was the outlier, that was the blip. And I do think that weather was a factor. It's very cold, obviously, in Canada. I think they struggled with tyre warm-up. They were still adapting an upgrade that they were bringing that they didn't fully understand. I think that was the one off for them. I think unlike Monaco, which is almost a completely different track to Canada in the sense of the speed and how the temperatures run, where they dominated, of course, in Monaco, with Leclerc winning there for the first time. You know, Freddie Vass has come out and said, that's the outlier. We're going to be back on the pace. We've got an upgrade coming to the Spanish Grand Prix as well. He's stopped as far as going, that we're going to be the fastest car. And he has not bigged them up to the point where they might be thinking, we could be getting race wins here. So, okay, it's not been super optimistic, but he's definitely declared very publicly they're going to be right back on it. And whilst McLaren have been fairly consistent with their pace, and whilst Red Bull have been fairly consistent with theirs, one Mercedes have been lacking. They've always sat around that fourth fastest car area. Ferrari have been all over the place. They were fastest, of course, in Australia, where they ended up winning. Yes, Max Verstappen had the DNF, but they were the fastest car there, I think. And the same with Monaco. But when their pace does ring true, they seem very much like they're almost a little bit unstoppable. They feel like they've really got the car together. If the upgrade works well here, if the track conditions work nicely for them, I feel like Leclerc and Sainz together could really deliver quite a potent performance this weekend and really could take it to Red Bull. I would be baffled if both cars are outside the top 5. I would not be. I'm very much expecting at least one of them back on the podium, if not both of them, to be comfortably fighting for podium places this time around.
Would you agree with that, Harry?
Yeah, I feel like Canada was a bit of an anomaly for Ferrari. I mean, the strategy was classic Ferrari, but in terms of the pace they had there, it doesn't line up with the rest of the season so far. And actually, they were so far off. It was actually kind of strange in a way, like there was something clearly wrong. So I would, as you say, back to a more classic European circuit, I'd say Ferrari should be back in the mix again. Whether they'll be as competitive as they were at Monaco, apparently they just did the Monaco upgrade, and that is all. But that remains to be seen. But you'd expect them to be, like I'd already mentioned, I think back in the mix with McLaren, Mercedes, etc., and hopefully Red Bull as well. I don't expect another Canadian GP from Ferrari at 17th and 18th incoming.
Yeah, now we've said this, of course that is going to happen. I would agree with you both. I think Canada was some weird perfect storm of bad weather, not a lot of practice time, not being very quick, Charles Leclerc having an issue, strategy. It was like everything that could go wrong for Ferrari did go wrong at Canada. But hey, you might as well pile them all into one weekend. It's better than there being one big issue every single race weekend for like 8 races in a row. So maybe they've got it out of their system. Maybe they haven't. In fact, I'm not very optimistic anymore, putting it more in their system. But no, in theory, they should be back to normal. McLaren, they have said, and I know they've been alluded to already in this conversation, they have mentioned that there is no fear that the car that they have will suffer at high-speed Barcelona. We've had some low-speed circuits that have come up in the last few Grand Prix, of course, where a lot of their upgrades were directed towards, Sam. Do you agree with their lack of pessimism about the fact that a new type of circuit might not suit the car?
I do think they've got a right to be a bit optimistic about this. And I know that we've seen a lot of slow-running tracks. We have Monaco and Imola, of course, and Canada, which has been mentioned numerous times, is a little bit of an outlier in the sense that there's a lot of chicanery going on there. There is a lot of colder weather. Chicanery is a great word.
That's a new word. I like that.
Great word, isn't it? Get that out of your dictionaries. But if you look, I think, to the closest track that we've got where McLaren performed really, really well, and that was Miami. There's a lot of similarities between Miami and Spain. It's very fast-flowing, very few incredibly slow corners. It's got one very long straight DRS section that tends to be an easy place for overtaking. And who was the fastest car on track in Miami? Lando Norris by a country mile. He was absolutely flying around there. And Piastri was doing a really, really good job as well, even with only half of the upgrades on the car at the time. So I think as long as there are some similarities between Miami GP and the Spanish GP in terms of temperature, it's a very smooth surface. The corners are relatively similar in speed. I really do think that if they get the setup right and they go into this with confidence, they could pose a real threat. I don't know if they're going to be able to outright beat someone like Red Bull here. I do think that's going to be a little harder for them where they've been challenging at the likes of Imola. I know they didn't win at Imola, but on pure pace alone, of course, we didn't have the safety car. They looked like they could almost get that victory if it was easy to get past. I think they could be in the running. I don't know if it'll be good enough to go and win, but I think they're firmly going to be there and they should have nothing to worry about. I don't think they're going to be dropped by Ferrari, for example.
Harry, do you think the high-speed sections of the Barcelona circuit should worry them at all?
I don't think so, because McLaren, and I guess we've not really seen it this year with the circuits we've had. I guess Saudi's probably the only one with high-speed corners. But McLaren, at least last year, at the back end of last year, were good at high-speed circuits like Qatar, I'm thinking of. So I feel like it's the strength of their, at least not necessarily the car, but the direction they've gone in with the current car they have. So I'd be surprised if it was a struggle for them, because they've normally done pretty well in high speed corners over the past 12 months or so. So I'd expect them to be in it, even if the upgrades have focused on slow speed stuff. But that's where they were struggling beforehand, so it makes sense to focus on that. So yeah, I expect McLaren to be in the mix. Silverstone last year was another example, high speed track. They did pretty well, so I'd expect them to be in the mix.
Yeah, copy and paste that answer. The reason that they haven't focused on high-speed corners as part of their upgrades is because that's where the car has been pretty good. So I don't think there should be too much concern that we are now going to a high-speed circuit and, they haven't focused their upgrades in that area. They obviously didn't need to. So this is where they are actually 17th and 18th, and Ferrari are dropped to 19th and 20th. I'm very aware that will now happen. We'd be remiss for not mentioning, of course, Mercedes very quickly as part of this segment as well. Sam, 1-2 incoming, right?
Here they come. The Spanish merchants are back. They have a weird reputation with this racetrack, don't they? Of course, the famous crash between Hamilton and Rosberg. What was that, 15 that happened? Which is...
16,
was it 16?
16.
16.
Yeah, it was 2016, wasn't it?
All right. Okay.
The crash.
Yeah.
Big 16.
All right. So we're coming up to a decade of that wonderful moment in Formula One. And then they've just been purely dominant here. Even when they've seemed to have struggled, they seem to be able to pull out great pace around the Spanish Grand Prix. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because they've got so much data from testing and whatnot around Catalonia that they are able to set the car up better. They understand the temperatures more. Their upgrades typically are testing around this racetrack. It makes sense that a lot of their creation of the core of their car stems from the track they do most of their running at, which is Catalonia. Hamilton obviously has gone very well here historically. George Russell has always done all right round here. I don't think they're going to go on and be challenging for, the wing. But if they could be as close as they were in Canada, what's not to say that they might not sneak another podium if things go their way, if they get the strategy correct and they're a bit brash and a bit bold. And they were in Canada. They went out for it, right? Remember, Hamilton was one of the first to dive in, and then they tried to change the tyres round, and They really try to go for it. So if they execute something bold and interesting in Spain and they get lucky with a safety car, the car has probably got the pace to cling on for a third or a fourth place. But Hamilton needs to sort his qualifying out. He doesn't necessarily need to beat George Russell, but he's been too far off recently. It's not like there's no cars between them and Russell is qualifying sixth every time and Hamilton is seventh. Too often now, there are 2 or 3 cars between the two of them, and that will be the difference maker. If they could both start in 4th and 5th, for example, rather than 5th and 9th, they've got a real chance of scoring some good points. So the onus here is on Lewis to give it a go, mate. Try and beat your teammate for the second time in the season.
Give it a go.
Give it a go.
Been missing.
Most successful qualifier in history. Give it a go.
Effort. Come on. Try.
I mean, I'll ask Harry the main important question that everyone is asking. Will Lewis Hamilton reverse his decision to go to Ferrari when he wins this weekend?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
definitely, yes. To be fair, do you think he was looking at them last weekend going, oh,
uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Am I sure? No.
Lewis only has one race recency bias. Hasn't paid attention to the last 3 years of Mercedes.
Yeah, but they're going to win it, aren't they? That's how this works. Mercedes.
Great job, Lewis. Another win for us. We are back.
We are back. I expect Mercedes to be... It's weird because it's not even like... There are other circuits like Silverstone, as already mentioned, doesn't translate over. Hasn't translated over for the past 3 years. Why? Why does that make any sense? But just Spain, I don't know, there's something about the circuit they seem to go well at. So you'd have to... Based on, and not to be based on recency bias, but based on what's happened over the past couple of years where they've gone well here, you'd have to say they'll do well again this weekend. I just remembered. So 2022 they did it right here with no side pods. 23 is when this was the weekend they brought in the side pods and still did well.
Yep.
So what is it about that car that does well at Spain?
I've heard Toto's already standing on the podium bit for the constructor, waiting for his...
Give me the trophy now.
Guys, is it coming? Because I've got pumpernickel waiting.
Good.
It's getting cold.
Folks, it was 19 minutes before Sam mentioned pumpernickel, if you had it on your bingo cards.
Joke on the show.
I'd expect Mercedes to be strong this weekend. George Russell's going to be working so hard. There's going to be so much rain inside his helmet. It's going to be unreal.
We need another cracking message from George.
Come on, George.
But a bit dry on that front. I mean, pardon the pun of the rain.
We've had Putin.
We haven't had a lot.
We've had Putin.
Yeah, Putin.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
he hasn't gone off, has he?
No, last year was on fire. I don't know what's happened to him. Anyway, in conclusion, I think Mercedes will do well.
Good. And of course, we'll find out whether they feature as part of our poll 1, 2, 3 in a little bit. That will be on the other side of this break, as will some more news and potential regarding Alpine.
They're on more episodes and they have points.
I don't understand.
It's not even
Stop
close.
making news.
Just be good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back as we now go to Alpine, because Autosport understands that Alpine is considering abandoning its works Renault engine, the one from 2026, and has open talks with rival manufacturers about the possibility of securing a customer deal instead. With its current Renault power unit down on performance compared to rivals and no certainty it will get things right for the next generation turbo hybrids that are coming in 2026, it has questioned whether the huge investment needed to produce its own engine is essential. Autosport sources have revealed that Alpine team principal Bruno Firmin has been pondering the situation over recent weeks and has held talks with rival manufacturers to see what the alternative options could be. Sam, talk.
Oh, no. This is one of the most bizarre steps that Alpine could have taken with this great saga of news that they're coming
Running out of things to do. So what do we do next? We can't fire any more people. Let's fire our engine.
Oh,
Yeah, crikey. What, they can start running the cars on? Cheese? Honestly, at this point, maybe. Might work more. Tastier. So this is really interesting because this is, of course, a works power unit team. This is not a customer team. They bring their own engines. They're owned by Renault, of course. If you don't know, if you're new to the sport, you think you're Alpine. They're owned by Renault. Renault, one of the most global car brands that you could think of, right? And they power all their own road cars as well with Renault engines. And I've heard lots of people go, well, Aston Martin don't use Aston Martin engines. So, well, Aston Martin's road cars use Mercedes engines. Harry, am I right?
Correct.
Thank you very much. And that's why they're using Mercedes engines in Formula One as well. Of course, they're transitioning to Honda, but they've got a very long-standing relationship both on the road and in Formula One with Mercedes. And McLaren are the same. McLaren regularly use Mercedes engines in their McLaren road cars as well. The difference here being, of course, Renault use Renault engines. They build their own engines, they run their own engines, and Alpine cars run Renault engines. So you can already see the predicament here between a Formula One team, which, remember, is primarily a marketing unit. They changed the name to Alpine to show off the sports capacity of their industry, of their arm of the development side. Alpine was to rival Porsche and BMW sports cars and top-end Mercedes and that level, right?
God, I'm quaking.
Oh, yeah. Alpine.
Quaking in their boots.
Them Alpines be coming.
Porsche be quaking. Said no one.
Can you hear that? Oh, wait, no, it's just Alpine. We're fine.
Paranoia.
Honestly. Honestly, that was the whole purpose of Alpine becoming the team and Renault transitioning to Alpine, that it would be a marketing vehicle to promote this super sporty, cool vehicle that, you know, people instead of Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, whatever it might be, should go out and buy an Alpine. They're like the same price. They ain't cheap, boy. They are costly. Now, you're telling me that if I buy an Alpine, the sports team that's meant to advertise it can't actually run the engine that's meant to power my race car that I'm meant to go and buy with my own money. You don't trust it. You don't think it's worth the money. You don't think it's going to work properly. That doesn't sell anything, does it? That's like Mercedes going, you know what? Mercedes cars are great. The one thing that doesn't work is our engines. So Ford, can we power the Mercedes cars with Ford? Just go buy a Ford then. I'll just go buy a Ford. It's the same logic. I don't understand where you think that this logic is going, Renault, and that is the people making this decision, of why you think a race team, where you gotta go fast, in the words of a certain famous character, I'll let you work out who, you know, the engine predominantly provides that power. You're putting it in your road cars to sell road cars to customers, while you think, oh, we won't do that anymore. We'll just have someone else. It is honestly the level of idiocy. You have to marvel at it because it's on another level at the moment.
I do have to say, I'm worried about one thing, and that is for F1's sake, actually. I'm worried about F1 because, as we know, F1 are deeply concerned about the reputational damage that could be occurred by another customer team. That's why, of course, they didn't let Andretti in. So I have to assume that F1 are going to take action on this very soon because it is a real reputational risk. Right, F1?
Where's the value? Where's the value that they're providing?
Harry, how likely do you think this is?
Right. How likely do I think it is? It's Alpine. I think is extremely likely. Can we just, and you've already touched on this, Sam, can we just re-establish where we're at now? Yes. Alpine, who are owned by Renault, don't want to use Renault engines.
Correct. Publicly declaring that as well.
That's where we are.
Yeah. And have done so since the late 1970s. They've been in F1 since then and used their own engines. I appreciate a different name now, of course, but they've always used Renault, unless I've missed something, they've always used Renault power
Still
units.
a Renault.
Yeah.
As in Renault have always used Renault.
Yes.
Yeah.
That.
Okay. Good. What? Yeah.
Do it.
Why? I mean, between Alpine and Jacques Villeneuve lately, I don't think my blood pressure can take anymore.
I really, by the way, I did really appreciate that. I know you weren't here, but I loved it.
I also, on that note, that didn't record the first time, so I had to do it twice. I had to be angry twice.
The emotion delivered was fantastic.
Anyway, yeah. So Alpine, you've got rid of a lot of people lately, as we've outlined previously. Many in the past 4 years, has been so eloquently alluded to in that last Alpine rant. But it would be good if you kept some and made your engine better, rather than get rid of people. Get rid of people and then also get rid of your engine. Because quite frankly, I know we've said this before, there aren't many good things going for Alpine at the moment. One of them was their driver lineup, which they've had enough of that.
Bye-bye.
Basically, the only good thing left for Alpine was that they were not a customer team, and they're now thinking, well, we must be a customer team now. This is the only logical conclusion. Alpine, stop it! I know they're not listening, but can you stop it?
They might be listening.
Stop it!
They don't have the function, like they don't have the ability to listen.
I just
fired all their headphones.
I don't. Look, F1's a different place than it was in like 2014, 15, where McLaren made the jump to Honda because they couldn't be a customer team in this new hybrid age. They should have stayed a customer team, but anyway, the point being that's where you had to be. And as we go into the next set of regulations, the engine seemed like it's going to be more important again. Obviously, Aston Martin have made the jump to Honda for 26. Red Bull are going to be with Ford. It's going to be more important. But again, Alpine, you have the ability to be like those teams and have your own bespoke engine, and you want to give it away. I don't understand. I know this is an obvious thing to say. I just don't understand. Because they must have sat down in a meeting somewhere in France, I assume, or Enstone. And where they sat around a table, Bruno Famin and Trent Alexander-Arnold probably, just the two of them. And they sat there and gone, how do we make this situation is not good. We've lost one of our drivers because we fired him. We've lost a lot of people.
Because we chose to lose him.
We lost him.
How did you lose him? We put him there.
Yeah. Which idiot did that? Oh, it was me.
It was me. We've lost a lot of people, and now we must lose our engine. And they look at each other and go, that's a good idea. Shake hands, and they walk off and have a baguette or something. I don't know.
The stereotyping continues.
Then a croissant. It's ridiculous, and they readjust their berets. I don't know. This is just madness. It may not happen.
I hate going quick.
That might need some work.
No, it doesn't. Leave it at that.
It's back next episode, folks.
French Sam. Oh, good.
You know what? It's actually got to the point where it's gone full circle. I love this team. I love this team because they bring me joy. And honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm struggling in life and I'm finding things difficult. And then I just look at Alpine and think, things aren't that bad, Like, it's actually all right.
It's like therapy.
You know, if I need a pickup, I'll just look at Alpine. Poor little helpless Alpine, like squirming around on the floor, like, you know what? I'm doing okay for myself.
I'm going to get a poster made up to put here. You could be Alpine.
If they were like an animal in the wild, there'd be a tortoise stuck on its back, on its shell.
Bloody dodo.
Help me. Help me. Help yourself.
Extinct. Right.
Being extinct.
Will be if they don't manage.
Alpine of the dodos of F1. That's excellent.
David Attenborough's commentating on it. They've gone instinct.
And here we are for the National Flying Championship of 2024. And here's the Alpine Dodo.
They can't use their own wings, so they've decided to buy someone else's.
Oh, God.
Right. It does seem ridiculous to say, but I feel like this is possible. Like, I know it's fundamentally stupid, but so are Alpine. So it feels like that this actually could be a thing, because rightly or wrongly, they will look at the McLaren model and say, are they not winning regular races because of their power unit? No. Therefore, we can copy that. Now, whether that's right or wrong is another thing, but they will at least look at that and think there's something to be had there. And I know they keep disputing this claim as well, but they don't help themselves when they make decisions like this, or potentially make decisions like this. The team would be easier to sell if they didn't have the engine department that went with it. And I know they keep saying it's not for sale, it's not for sale, but you're doing a lot of things that are making it quite easy to sell at this point. But even like, regardless of whether it's a good or a bad thing, it would just be so weird. Like, more than anything, it'd be weird to see a Renault, an Alpine, without a Renault engine. Because the team has always been something of like a cornerstone of French industry, right? It's always been a very proud, like, state-owned. It's still minority state-owned. I think about 15% of Renault is owned by the state. That's why they've had so many, national French drivers before, right? It would be weird to have a Mercedes or a Honda in the back of it. It just doesn't quite add up. And equally, like, they're the only team, fortunately, that runs their own power unit. No one else runs the Renault power unit. So actually being able to lose it, you wouldn't have to deal with any messy divorces from other teams. So I can understand why they think it might be a good idea. But I just don't understand how it gets to this point. How does it get to this point where the power unit has been down for years, right? It has been down for years. And you can point fingers at Renault and say it's their fault that it's that way, or you can point fingers at the FIA and say that they should have equalized things when Renault said they should have done. Regardless of who you put to blame here, it has been well documented that it's been down on power for a number of years. You should have poured everything into 2026 and getting this right. Not now, years ago, because this came to a conclusion quite a long time ago. You should have been fully focused on 2026 from that point onwards. And the fact you haven't is just classic Renault. They have somehow found themselves with a problem, a 1+1 problem, and come up with the answer of 6 2/3. Like, they have a career of doing this. And I don't understand how they keep getting into it. The problem is the engine is not very good and it's quite expensive. And their solution is, okay, let's offload it to someone else and we'll save some money. Do you think that the likes of Red Bull, who've had a dominant 4 years, or Mercedes, who had a dominant 8 years before that, do they honestly think that they got there through sheer dumb luck and by, who can cut corners the best? The reason those two teams have had dominant spells is because they invested for it. They have put in what you need to get what you need, which is success. And Alpine just can't seem to get it through their heads that is how you get a dominant run, even one championship in F1. But this is classic. It's just, okay, there's an issue. Let's get someone else to solve it. Backwards team. Classic.
If Alpine cut more corners, they might actually do all right in a race.
Wait, come on. That's excellent work.
That's excellent work. Also, probably factually untrue. They'd mess that up somehow. Which of the power units that are currently on the grid, or maybe will be on the grid, Sam, for 2026, which of them do you think is maybe best positioned to work with Alpine?
So that's a really interesting question, because it is not as simple as just picking and choosing whichever you fancy. And if you're new to F1, there is actually a lot of rulings around power unit supply. Is it just Oh, I drove a Mercedes, or my dad drives a Mercedes. We'll have them because I like them.
Good to see that voice back.
It's good, isn't it? It came back on the Patreon episode as well, but you weren't there for that. So
I don't do that.
No, good. So there's a lot of rulings because manufacturers can only serve engines to a certain number of customers, and currently it's Mercedes that serve the most engines. So Mercedes serve themselves as the manufacturer. They also sell their engines to both Williams, Aston Martin, and McLaren. Now, one of those is being offloaded, of course, because Aston Martin are transitioning from Mercedes to Honda, which is fine. So that means Honda have one, Ferrari have themselves, Sauber and Haas. Of course, Sauber is becoming Audi. So Ferrari have two, Audi have one, Honda have one, Mercedes have three. And then Alpine have the other one. Now, if Alpine were to be gone, you're down to how many suppliers is that? Mercedes is one, Ferrari is two, Honda is three, and then Ford will be four, and then Audi will be five. So you're still on five. Now, a new power unit supplier is not allowed to sell to another team. So when they come in, when Audi come in 2026, they're not allowed to sell their engine to another team in the first year of being in the sport. You can only sell it to yourself. You can only supply yourself. So that rules themselves to be down to Honda, Ford, Red Bull, which is obviously Ford as well, Ferrari. What?
Honda technically new?
No, because they're going to be transitioning.
They're technically new every year, aren't they? But also been around for 30 years. Like,
I didn't know that. I don't know if it's. That was a genuine question.
No.
I don't know.
To my knowledge, they're not considered a new power unit supplier because of the same people will be making the engine, and they've got the previous research and technology. So I think that realistically, their options are going to be between Mercedes, Ferrari or Honda will be the main options. I don't know how well Ford is considered, of course, because I know that they're currently in the transition phase. So to me, it makes sense that you either go for a Honda or a Mercedes, probably because of the relationship that you can have there, and you know that you've got a very consistent base there. I would probably pick a Mercedes unit. I would simply lift off what Aston Martin were buying and take it straight off their hands. It feels very simple. You know that Mercedes have the capacity. You know that there's going to be reassurance that they're going to keep making it. They're not going anywhere. That's where I would go. The logical option, though, is just to keep making it yourself. But I have heard that Bruno Fuming is already looking at talking to Ford to try and take on a Red Bull engine off of their hands as well, which would be very interesting. But for me, it would be Mercedes if you were going to go away from your own power unit.
Yeah, I think for me, Merc is the most likely of that group. My instinct is that Red Bull, they've undertaken quite a mission. Obviously, creating a power unit is a mission for anyone, but given they don't have a wealth of experience in this field, I feel like they're going to want to focus on themselves. I think they've even admitted as well, like having to serve Minardi at the same time. Even that is a bit of a stretch. They're going to do it, obviously. So I don't think they're going to look at a third team. I think they'll go. I think they'll go Mercedes. But I also think it's worth factoring in. Maybe not for straight away, but Cadillac. Maybe that comes to be. What do you think, Harry?
I mean, Cadillac could go with another team if that was...
What other team?
Yeah.
We've already got 10.
Exactly.
I don't know any numbers higher than 10, Harry.
Especially that wouldn't bring any value to the sport.
No, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Merc. And that team does have 1 year of history with Mercedes because they had Mercedes engines in 2015 as Lotus. Because they ditched Renault then as well.
Yeah. Well done. That was well.
And then Renault came back immediately. But yeah, so they've got at least some experience with working with them for a year. If you want to go really, really old school and hark back to the 90s, they could be Alpine Ford, and like they were Benetton Ford, which is a long time ago, but there's a nice little bit of history there, which I'm sure maybe Benetton will come back. Flavio goes back
as well. They're still looking for drivers.
Oh God.
Jos, you fancy it?
Yeah, you can have Mick Schumacher and Max Verstappen and recreate the 1994 season. But yeah, I mean, Mercedes is the most obvious option here. Even if it's again maybe just for a year and then they try and go for someone else, but it's a safe bet, isn't it? A German motor.
German motor.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing, of course, is that the FIA are allowed to essentially force an engine onto a supplier if they can't find one, and they're allowed to supply up to 3 via being just told you will supply that team with an engine. So if they don't find anyone, the FIA can just wave their magic wand and go, you will be given an engine by this team.
That'd be so Alpine, wouldn't it?
It would. Can't make a decision. What do? We're just going to give you one because you can't be bothered to turn up.
Here's a Renault engine.
Imagine, we found these ones out the back. Do you want them?
Alpine get forced to have Renault engines.
Do we have to run this car? We don't want to anymore.
Oh, good.
Oh, man. Let's put the focus back on the Spanish GP coming up this weekend with some bold predictions.
Gather around, little children, and listen to my song about my F1 bold predictions and how they'll all be wrong.
Honestly, if Question of the Week has become the best segment in all of podcasting, this might be my worst for this season, given how well bold predictions are going. Sam, do you want to kick us off? What bold prediction have you got?
Well, I was going to go down the route of not being insulted by our listeners because someone on YouTube called me a hobbit the other day, which is good. It's good, that, isn't it?
It's a bit savage.
I went, I don't know who's who, and I've always liked Sam, but now I think he might be that hobbit one, and I'm not sure if I'm happy anymore. And I thought, so I'm doing this for the fellowship. Anyway, my bold prediction
Is the one.
I will destroy the One Ring in Mordor. No, sorry. I'll link some Lambert spread. Mine is going to be that Max Verstappen will win by 10 plus seconds and have a very dominant Grand Prix.
So that's basically mine, but I'm just more bold than you because I've said 20 seconds.
Okay, have fun with that. I'm saying it 10. See you later.
Well, you never guess. Mine is actually, it's not.
Imagine.
Both Mercedes on the podium.
Love that. Good stuff.
Spanish merchants are back.
Damn, love that. Speaking of, pole 1, 2, 3. Harry, we know what two of them are going to be, but what's the rest of it looking like?
Pole position I'm going to give to Charles Leclerc, or Barcelona, La Barcelona. Then nice. Max Verstappen will win, and then it'll be Lewis Hamilton and George Russell.
Nice. I'm going Verstappen pole, Verstappen win, George Russell second, and then third place will be Lando Norris. Sam?
I'm going Max Verstappen pole, Max Verstappen win, and then I'm going to go La Catalunya in second place with Sergio Perez in third.
Good stuff. And as always, let us know what your bold predictions are looking like, what your pole 1, 2, 3 is looking like as well. We'll take our second break on this episode. On the other side, we're going to be figuring out who or what is under pressure.
Dun, 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 dun.
Classic.
Welcome back. It's time for our Under Pressure segment. And as always, we do have some Discord submissions that we're going to run through. But before we get there, we'll each give our submission for who or what we think is under pressure. And we'll start with Mr. Sage. Sam, what have you got?
I'm going for Valtteri Bottas being under pressure. We're getting onto him in a bit of a topic, so I won't delve too much into it. But realistically, he's obviously not signed to a team as of yet. His options are starting to wane in where he could end up going. He's got to make sure that he really delivers. I know the car isn't fantastic. The team can't do a pit stop properly. They don't know what they're doing with themselves when it comes to their future identity. But Valtteri Bottas just needs to have one pretty decent weekend where he actually gets points on the board, and it isn't just a really good performance, but he still finishes in 16th place. He needs something to show for it. So, I think Bottas needs just a bit of an uplift to make sure. He won his first gravel bike race the other day outside of Formula 1, which is cool. So he's winning outside of F1.
You think that's going to get him the contract?
I reckon that will do it. They'll go, who cares about the racing? Guy's great on two wheels.
Hey, with the way that some of their pit stops go, that could come in handy at one point. I'm going to go with Kevin Magnussen because Behrman is getting another free practice outing this weekend. And when Nico Hülkenberg, it was confirmed that he'd be moving on from the team and joining Sauber next year, I thought he was immediately safe because that just seemed like the sensible thing to do at the time. The fact that they haven't done anything with it just makes me think, why wouldn't you? Because they could have just wrapped up like the Kevin Magnussen deal straight away after Nico Hülkenberg moved on. And the fact they're not just makes me think that they're not fully convinced. We know penalties wise, he is on the cusp of a one race ban at some point. We know that Behrman is going to be a favourite for getting in the other seat. But with a few other drivers floating around, I feel like he still needs to deliver just to prove to Haas that he is their guy for next year. Harry, what have you got?
I've gone for the, I don't know what it's called, Catalonia, the circuit itself, because past couple of years have been all right there. Actually, past
Undersold it, my man.
past three years, 21 onwards, 20 onwards. Yeah. I'm not saying they're under pressure because of that. It's because I think it just needs to keep that up because we've got another Spanish track coming and it could lose its place on the calendar. So under pressure to deliver another good GP as it has done or has been doing already.
Sporadic pump the brakes. I think the new regulations have worked best at this track out of any other track on the entire calendar because I actually really look forward to it at the moment. I think it's been great.
Yeah. I was early to the party on this, so I'm just going to be smug about it.
Good for you, mate. Take that one. That's a good point for you.
Take the W, Ben.
Hey, I'll take any point I can get. I'm not getting much of them elsewhere, am I? So, just on your point as well about the Spanish Grand Prix, for reference, Barcelona will be hosting the Spanish Grand Prix this year and next year, 2026. That's when the Spanish Grand Prix moves to Madrid, although Barcelona will also be a part of the calendar in that year, but it's unknown about whether Barcelona will feature from 2027 onwards, whether there'll be two races.
1 million Grand Prix.
Good.
Quite possibly. We've got some submissions from our Discord, of course. Thank you to all of those that have put your name in the hat. We've got some of them ready to play. Harry, if you'd take us away.
Okay, so nothing happened there. First up is Big American Daddy.
This is Big American Daddy. The driver under pressure this week has got to be Esteban Ocon. Unless he pulls out some kind of miracle and gets on the podium with that dump truck of an Alpine, no one is going to look at him for 25.
Goodness me.
He'll be going nowhere. Where you going? Nowhere. Thanks an awful lot, guys.
Nowhere.
Where you going? Nowhere.
Goodness me. Alpine.
I love that.
All the time. Thank you for that. Next is Break Late or Go Home, which is an excellent name.
We love that.
You all right, lads? Break late or go home here. My under pressure for this week is Ferrari, given that they managed to completely nose up Canada. They're under pressure to show that their form wasn't just a one-off. And Sainz, I suppose, in particular, because he's running out of seats for next year, so he's got to prove he's still got what it takes. Cheers, guys. Love the pod.
Knowles up is, Noel Edmonds there has been battered.
Or Nick Knowles up. Next up is Viti Volta. Is that what we're going with? It's got 3 laughy emojis underneath it, so I'm worried already.
Oh no!
Hello, this is the Vito Walter, first time submitter, long time listener. Under pressure this week is Harry's fantasy team. Dear Lord, son,
Oh yeah.
get good.
Oh yeah, that's a fair point. I'll try and change
good.
that. I've an absolutely
Now
done.
you've been told to get good, you're actually going to be fine. You just didn't know that was a thing.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Good.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I will still forget probably.
That's a great submission, by the way.
Next up is Tree Torn.
I think there's actually a few under pressures this week. Spain turn 1, the title of the best turn 1 on the calendar. That's something they have to continue to justify every year. I would say Merck are under pressure. I mean, are they Spain merchants? Are they crap merchants? What kind of merchants are they? Also, this whole Estradamus thing. I mean, how can someone with that name be so bad at fantasy sports? It's mind-boggling.
Good.
Can we just disclose the conversation we had off air?
When the podcast ended, we were all so confused.
None of us knew, apart from Ben, who Estradamus was. Goodness me.
It's not Estradamus. That's your name plus Nostradamus.
Oh, yeah, bad boy.
Ben just got Notre Dame wrong.
Oh, good.
Oh no.
Anyway, next up is Bristol Liam.
Right, Pat. Joe Guanpo. Just get good, mate. I've never rated you. I told Sam that while he was live streaming. Check out the LB Twitch, by the way. So yeah, he's going to get kicked out if he's not careful.
Very good.
Cheers.
Goodness me. Stroke
Yeah,
on
I
poo.
got a philosophy mock exam to go to Bristol, Liam. Hope it went all right, mate.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Goodness me. Pick better subjects, Liam. Anyway.
Oh, come on.
I'm joking. Next up is, this is from a history student. Next up is Joys That Kill.
For Monaco, I said George was under pressure and he got 5th place and he was ahead of Max Verstappen. I said George was under pressure in Canada and he got pole and finished with a podium. So I think I'm going to go with George is under pressure for Spain. Not because he actually is, but I want to keep this ball rolling because I always want George to do good.
It's a good, based on good logic, that.
I like that we're using under pressure now as almost like a good luck talisman rather than actually who's under pressure.
Yeah, fair. Next up is Wet K-Mag.
This is Gene Haas's close personal friend, Wet K-Mag. My under pressure is Haas. They need to follow up last race's heroics. Throw the wets on, even if it's dry. Love the podcast. Join the Patreon.
Is he? Has he done that just for that submission? He's made a name Wet K-Mag for that.
Can we not say that again, please?
Also,
got Wet K-Mag.
Also, if he's a close personal friend, I don't think he is a close personal friend of Gene Haas because Wet K-Mag's clearly a new person and he doesn't do new people. So,
hey, I'm not calling him a liar.
What? You're not calling Wet K-Mag a liar?
Oh yeah, I'm not calling Wet K-Mag a liar.
Maybe it's like a pseudonym or like a riddle. Actually, it's like Komatsu or something like that that's submitted.
Good. Next up is Lance.
This is Lance, friend of the podcast and training, also better than Stroll. And for my under pressure submission this week, at this point, it's going to be a bit until either I get acknowledged or Ben actually gets one correct. But team principal Ben Hawking is under pressure. Still hasn't gotten a bold prediction yet.
Yeah,
there's nobody driving in the Alpine seat for 2025. Ben, what's going on, man? I believe in you. You're the stat man. Get it together.
Just you wait. When we've saved all of our money from not making engines, we'll be all right. Let me cook.
I'm just going to enjoy that I didn't get a bad call out in that entire session, and you two did. So get your acts together, please, chaps.
But we're not done yet. Beef is next.
No. Oh no!
Hello. I'm not doing well. You might be able to tell. Been on my deathbed all week. It's all right though.
God.
Saw Taylor Swift. Woo! Had a fabulous time. I'm dog sitting this weekend with my sister's dog, so that's going to be fun. Under pressure, Checo. Don't bin it. Maybe a top 5. That will do at this point. The bar is very low for you. Okay, bye.
That'll do, Beef. That'll do.
Good to know that Beef's dog sitting a dog, by the way.
I was going to make a rude joke about one of you two being in her company for the weekend. But
No.
I thought of it.
Yeah. Anyway, last but not least, is Hazza.
Right, boys, most under pressure for Spain this weekend is Mercedes. Obviously had some good progress in Canada, but Spain is a proper car track. This is where you sort out whether you know what's going on now. Mercedes have been saying for a long time, we understand the problem. Well, I said that to my wife and now I'm divorced. Don't put your under your mouth is Mercedes. Do you understand the problem or not? Get a result in Spain and you're on a good path. Cheers, boys.
Oh no!
Hazard's in Spain without the S.
Goodness me.
What a line!
Ben's in absolute shock. He doesn't know what to do with that.
Cheers, Hazza.
Crikey.
Everyone
okay,
send out your L's to Hazza there. I hope you're okay, Hazza.
My goodness.
That shocked us.
Thank you all for your submissions and hope you're all okay.
I feel like it's becoming like a collective therapy session, this submission
somehow, yes.
segment.
The listeners are under pressure. Be well.
Are you okay? Are you well?
More submissions coming in our race review on Sunday. We'll be asking for moment of the race straight after the Grand Prix. So if you're in the Discord, you can get in there quick, and we'll play some audio submissions out on the show. But let's move on to a quick word on Valtteri Bottas. Sam, you listed him as under pressure, and I wanted to bring up this topic that he is confident he will not be left out of a quest for a 2025 seat. Do you think that will be the case?
I think, other than Carlos Sainz, Valtteri Bottas has got the biggest claim to success in Formula One. And he's a real asset to any team, especially those that are trying to be in development, trying to develop, trying to move forward. We already mentioned, Ben, I think this was on the Patreon episode, that, he would be a very nice fit for a replacement for Esteban Ocon, perhaps at Alpine. And he brings a lot of skills. You got to remember, he regularly out-qualified Lewis Hamilton. He scored wins for Mercedes. He helped them to constructors' titles after Nico Rosberg left. And even back in his Williams days, before he moved to Mercedes, he was a very strong driver. He's still producing fantastic drives at the back of the grid. He's not got a lot to show for it because the points aren't rolling in and the team's a bit of a mess. But the guy is an asset. And I do think in a sea of mediocre drivers of Formula One level, he is one of the ones that really stands out. I don't think he costs an absolute bomb to bring in either. Just give him a nice 2-year deal. Let him be comfortable. And I think you're going to have a really safe pair of hands in your team that's going to deliver yourself some consistent results. So, yeah, I really do think, out of all those guys who are still not signed up to a team, I think Bottas should feel quite confident that he's going to be able to get himself something for at least another couple more years in the sport. I'd be shocked if he's left out.
Harry, as mentioned, he is confident that he won't be left out of this 2025 conundrum. At the same time, he is insistent on getting a multi-year deal at whatever team comes next. Do you think he might have to budge on that in order for the first part to be true?
Yeah, Valtteri, I get you triggered by a single year deal because that's all they ever gave him at Mercedes. But you might just, even to get yourself onto that 25 grid, you might just have to back down and accept one for now, and maybe then you can get another multi-year for the future after that. But he's not an idiot. I think if it's between getting a multi-year deal or getting an F1 seat for just 1 year, he's gonna go for the 1 year deal. So I would like to think he wouldn't be silly enough to just absolutely hang everything off it being a multi-year deal and just accept I think for him, he wants to guarantee he's still there when 26 hits and the new regulations come along. But for the sake of still being on the grid, if you've got to take a 1 year, take a 1 year, and just prove yourself in the car.
Complete side note: how Bruno fuming must Valtteri Bottas be that Sergio Perez has now had back-to-back multi-year deals at Red Bull? Because we've always compared them somewhat as second drivers at dominant teams. As you say, Bottas only ever got 1 year deals at Mercedes. Perez has now got back-to-back multi-year deals. He must just be thinking, why couldn't Mercedes have done that for me?
And Bottas gave Hamilton more of a run, I'd say, potentially, than Perez did.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think if I'm Williams or Alpine, I do actually think that a 2 year deal for Bottas is on the cards. Now, obviously, if Sainz is an option for either of those teams, I think you go for him first, but Carlos Sainz is not going to be racing for both of them. So I think the loser in that battle could well be looking at Bottas, and I think it would be worth a 2 year deal for him. I certainly wouldn't go any more than that at this point. I'm pretty sure Sauber aren't going to give him a multi-year deal, the team he's currently at, especially with Nico Hülkenberg in the other seat. They've already got the experienced hand in Hülkenberg. I appreciate it'll be a brand new team, but Hülkenberg is one of the very few drivers in F1 who can actually say they are more experienced than Valtteri Bottas. So, I think maybe a 1 year deal will be an option at Sauber. I think those other two teams could stretch to 2 years, but he might have to have some wiggle room on that. Let's take our final break on this episode. We've got F1 back and forth after this.
Yay!
Okay, everyone, welcome back. It's time for F1 back and forth.
F1 back and forth. It's F1 back and forth. It goes backwards, then goes forth. It's F1 back and forth. F1.
Lovely. F1 back and forth. So Sam will go up against Harry. There's a category. There are 22 correct answers in this category. They'll go back and forth until they cannot think of an answer or give a wrong answer. Now, the question is, do I give you any strikes today? Yeah, all right. You can have one.
I have 2 and Harry can have 1.
All right. Sam gets 7.
Yes!
Your question today is this. I want you to name the 22 drivers that started the first race of the hybrid era, that being the 2014 Australian Grand Prix. So 22 drivers, by the way. That's 11 teams. 11.
I didn't know there were any more numbers above 10, though.
I wasn't sure either. I felt certain that one team had 4 drivers racing for them instead. But no, apparently it's 11 teams.
Was it Alpine? I know what they're doing there.
So, 22 drivers you're looking for. Harry, kick us off.
Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton did race in the 2014 Australian Grand Prix, racing for Merck. Sam.
Nico Rosberg.
He was his teammate. It's a great start. Harry, back to you.
Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel. Yes, he is there, obviously. He was racing for Red Bull and in search for a 5th consecutive championship at this time.
Did he get it?
No. Sam?
It's because Daniel Ricciardo beat him.
Yes, and a few others.
Yeah, but he was, Vettel was, he was really tired, so he was...
Cheers, Jack. Yes, Daniel Ricciardo was his teammate. That's 4 correct between you. Harry, back to you.
Fernando Alonso.
Fernando Alonso racing, I would say in a Ferrari, but more accurately, a toaster.
Shopping trolley.
Was it cooking? Kimi Räikkönen.
And Kimi was struggling even more in that Ferrari. That's another correct answer. Harry.
Romain Grosjean.
Side note on those 2 Ferraris, by the way, they both finished that race and barely anyone finished and they still did awful. Yes, Romain Grosjean is a correct answer, racing for Lotus at the time. Sam.
Already mentioned Nico Hülkenberg.
Nico Hülkenberg, racing for Force India. Those were the days. Back to you, Harry.
Jenson Button.
Jenson Button, yes, racing for McLaren. They had a very good start to the year. Didn't really continue, did it? Sam.
K-Mag.
K-Mag was his teammate. Had a great start to his F1 career. I'm sure it was the first of many podiums.
No.
Harry, back to you.
Talk about peaking early. Sergio Perez.
Sergio Perez was Hülkenberg's teammate at Force India. Another correct answer. Sam, back to you.
Valtteri Bottas.
Valtteri Bottas racing for Williams. Harry.
Felipe Massa.
Felipe Massa racing for Williams. Back to you, Sam.
Jean-Eric Verne.
Jean-Eric Verne, one of the Toro Rosso drivers, is a correct answer. Back to you, Harry.
Pastor Maldonado.
Maldonado, that is Grosjean's teammate at the time at Lotus. Going well here. I think we've got 7 answers left on the board, Sam.
Oh, big Max Chilton was there, wasn't he?
Oh, big Max Chilton was there in that lovely Marussia.
Tom Chilton's less talented brother.
Correct. Bonus point for Harry.
Jules Bianchi, of course.
Jules Bianchi, yes, was Chilton's teammate in the Marussia. Sam.
Markiek.
Marcus Ericsson was not terrorizing other drivers in IndyCar at this time. He was in F1 racing for Caterham. Harry.
Kamui Kobayashi.
Despite the fact that he was basically paying £10 million per race to be there, yes, Kobayashi was racing for Caterham at the time. Which just leaves us with 3 answers, Sam.
Oh. Was Esty Goots there?
Esty Goots was there racing for Sauber, which means we're down to 2 correct answers left, Harry. Have you got one left?
Adrian Sutil.
Adrian Sutil was Gutierrez's teammate It's a correct answer, which means collectively you have got 21 out of the 22 correct
We've got
answers.
3 opportunities to do this, Sam.
I've given you strikes. So there's one name you're looking for, Sam. Who is it?
Absolute maniacal laughter as well. I want to get this right. I'm trying to run through the teammates we've been through. Was it Kvyat?
You did say Jean-Eric Vergne was in the Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
Of course, Daniel Ricciardo had moved up to Red Bull, leaving a space for Danny Kvyat, who raced in the 2014 Australian Grand Prix. That is a clean sweep, ladies and gentlemen. Very impressive from you both.
I
City end.
almost half expected the 2015 Australian Grand Prix, and then Guido van der Garde was going to be like a trick question.
That's a good shout, yeah. If you
Crossing off that
story,
back and forth out of his notepad now.
Van der Garde walking through the paddock in Marcus Ericsson's race overalls because he thought he had a contract is top banter. Go and look it up.
Gio Bantergaard.
That was highly impressive from you both. Highly impressive.
There we go.
And that would almost make that the best segment on this podcast, but it's not. It's not, because this is the greatest segment in all of podcasting. It is the
LB question of the week.
Beautiful. Thank you very much indeed. Question of the week this time around was regarding the Spanish Grand Prix. Thank you very much. I'm just learned to ignore at this point. Relating to the Spanish Grand Prix, what is the craziest thing that will happen at the Spanish Grand Prix? Sam, what answers did you like?
We had loads of good ones, and it looks like you guys really got involved with liking other people's, which I like as a great sign of what the people are interested in. The one that stood out, of course, on Instagram, I think was the most liked comment from Chris, which is Scooby-Doo and the gang will take off Logan Sargent's mask and reveal that he has been Nicholas Latifi all along, which I thought was a great reference. The next one came from Max. Oscar Piastri has somehow become 1/32 Spanish at winning his home race, which I absolutely love. And then another one that really stood out to me, which is a great reference to something that happened with Alpine a little while ago, and Alpine again mentioning again here, from Andy, said, Alpine will announce that they've signed us and subsequently fired a driver for 2025. But then Niki Lauda has replied saying, the driver tweets, this is not true. I will not be driving for Alpine this year, which I thought was a great reference.
Andy, mate, they're not Arrow McLaren and IndyCar. That's not how this works.
Don't get me started. I can't go down that path today.
Teo, bye-bye.
No, you're not going to race Laguna Seca. Sorry, Teo. I really like JD Chapman's, and we replied to this. This is just crowdsourcing bold predictions, and I will not be helping.
Yes, thank you very much.
I like that you've decided just to go, no, I refuse to take part in this ridiculousness.
This charade. Scotty or Scott as well. Otmar, maybe 10. How's that going to happen?
10 just ridiculous. Let's calm down.
Don't push it.
Chris said that Bruno Famin will end up firing himself. I mean, that's the only person left at this point. And someone else said firing Trent Alexander-Arnold that I can't immediately find. But yes, a lot, as always, a lot of Otmar and Alpine answers and Barry Manilow answers.
Yeah. Chris Mayer said girthy tyres.
Thought we were past that.
Never.
No.
Good. On Twitter, John Boy, whose at is Otmar's ninth child, Ted Kravitz will wear trousers.
Joe thinks that Daniel Ricciardo will lose his seat to Jacques Villeneuve and Harry will instantaneously combust, which I think would happen.
Yeah, I would. And everyone would hear it. It'd be a massive bang.
A really funny one from F1 Truther, by the way. Alpine fires their entire engine department. Can you imagine that?
Oh, Alpine. That would be ridiculous.
Bristol Liam comes out with, Williams will paint their engine cover in the colours of a Duracell battery. It's a very clever use of sponsorship.
Ooh. Why haven't I thought about doing that before?
Oh, honestly, have a day off.
Macaulay on Instagram said Bruno Famin will fire himself. And this one is from Zed Mucho. A double DNF for Mercedes. Ocon wins. Alpine then fire Gasly for being beaten. Ferrari 1-2 and Stroll pulls out a girthy P3.
Listen to that. Any other answers that you wanted to shout?
Rob here has said that there'll be 5+ race leaders. He's gone for the serious option, but if that happens, I'm excited, Rob. I want to see that race.
I like that race. That's better than our bold prediction, because if we get our bold predictions right, Sam. Also, by the way, if you get yours right and I get mine wrong, that's going to be so funny.
I can't wait for a 19.8 second lead.
You know it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, if either of our bold predictions are right, it's probably not been a great race. So hopefully 5+ race leaders does happen.
I don't know what this means, so I probably shouldn't read it out on the podcast. But Graham has said, "Estamos comprobando."
Why did you not translate that beforehand? Because who knows what that is.
I think that might be. My guess is that is we are checking.
Oh, excellent work.
If I've just read out something horribly,
Spanish is a bit dodgy.
Yeah, I was going to say, well remembered.
I'm going to have to translate it. It means we are checking. Well done, Ben.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
I think you mean gracias.
That's just
good. Spanish Sam has made an appearance right at the end, right at the death.
Can't do any more national. We've had Spanish, French, and Toto Wolff in one episode from Sam today. Can't risk any more nationalities at this stage. Thank you, as always, for all of your answers on both Instagram and Twitter. Much appreciated. You are, as always, hilarious and more funny than us. And we'll come back next week with another question. But Sam, if you wouldn't mind, until qualifying review on Saturday, getting us out of here.
Folks, that is right. You heard it here first. We will be back for qualifying, and hopefully it's another banger. It's been a great set of sessions so far this season. We'll do one there, and then we'll also be right back again for the race review straight after the Grand Prix on Sunday. Remember, you can get involved. So join the Discord. The link's in the description below, and you can do a submission. You hear yourself on the podcast. Loads of people love doing it. We get some great ones, of course. Rip to Hazard. Hope he's okay. You can also join the Patreon, because after the weekend, we're going to do our power rankings for the Spanish Grand Prix. And if you join now, you get to go back and listen to every single piece of content we've ever put out. That means beer with breakings. That means all the power rankings. That means the historic Grand Prix, which we're also recording next week. It's the 08 British Grand Prix. It's going to be a classic. We're doing a review of that as well. Loads of stuff you could get on board with Patreon. Twitch is now a thing. The PO Box is now a thing. Get involved any way you can. Social media, Late Breaking F1, and on YouTube as well. We'll love you. We'll leave you. We'll see you at the weekend. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Chicanery.
And remember, keep breaking late.
New word, I think.